and welcome back to Chinese Contenders Season 3. This is Week 1, Day 2. I'm joined here by the lovely Elvian and Vals, as well as who is, like I said earlier, the Chinese esports mastermind. You might recognize Elvian as well as the head coach from British Hurricane. But our next game is Lingan Esports versus Zoo. We have just seen Lab versus T1W. T1W, pretty dominant performance, but Lab brought out some things that did surprise us, considering they were missing their support as well as. But this is a season where Lingan Esports, they've got to kind of find themselves again. It's a bit of an emotional journey for them. They got to go meditate, take a step back. They have lost Undead, and they put a lot of resources into season 2, making sure that he was nice and topped up, nice and pocketed, so he could pop off. He was a bit cocky at times, but there you go. He still did a lot for the team. Now they have steadily improved from season 1 to season 2, from win rates going from 42% to 6% in the group stages. Now the question is that down to Undead, or have they improved as a whole? Yveltal's also been lost after a great performance in World Cup for China. How do you think this is going to affect them, Vals? Do you think that the remaining members have enough to make a big splash in this season of Chinese Contenders?
It's definitely one of the big question marks heading into the season. We've talked about this being a reconstruction season for Contenders China, so the power vacuum is there with LFC gone. A lot of the top talent is presumably moving on to Overwatch League, absent from this season as well. So it's who can fill the void, and Lingan need to be asking that question more than anyone, as you have alluded to. Undead went off to ventures and coaching, coached up the very successful Ambitious Immortals for a bit. We're not quite sure what he's doing now. We saw Yveltal had a great performance since she's in the World Cup. He's disappeared from this Lingan roster. We've had Rapunzel, their off tank. He's presumably heading to the Overwatch League as 2. Not present on this Lingan roster, so definitely trying to reconsider themselves. And one of the strengths of Lingan last season was their backline. They put a lot of resources into just keeping Undead alive and hoping he carries. And that came down in part to really great support play by Yveltal and Kelly, now known as Molly. That's one of my big questions with Lingan roster. How is Lengsa going to do filling the big shoes of Yveltal? He's been with the org for a while, previously played on their youth team, so they definitely have faith in him. They've got stock in him being a good player. But are they going to be able to live it to the same standards of Yveltal, who was seemingly immortal, always had great decision making? It's definitely big shoes to fill. I want to keep an eye on Lengsa, see how he can do this throughout the season, see if he can live up to the high standards.
You've got Undead and you've got the immortal Yveltal. I mean, like most of these players are alluding them not dying, but now they're gone. And we've got new players remaining. And someone that we don't talk about as much because he was more of a complementary DPS is Cammy. With Undead no longer in the lineup, maybe it's his time to step up. Do you think this is something that is possible for MLB?
Yeah, and like you said, for Lingan, just as a whole right now, they're kind of trying to find their identity and kind of where they fit right now into China. And Kami has to do that as well. Like you mentioned, he was pretty much always a complementary DPS. He was always secondary to Undead, but now that kind of hard carry is gone. So maybe it is his time to step up, and maybe it's his time to be the new carry for them. Or possibly on the flip side, maybe their new player, Zubi, I believe is how you pronounce it, their new DPS player, maybe he is supposed to be the Undead replacement. So at the moment, until we see them play, we're not entirely sure exactly what the kind of team dynamic is going to look like. But realistically, if neither DPS player steps up and there isn't a carry for this team, they start looking really questionable. And we have to start considering if they're actually going to make a deep run into the playoffs. They've only ever won a single map in the playoffs, despite making the playoffs in the past 2 seasons. So somebody's going to need to step up if they're going to make semifinals or even be a contender in any real way.
Definitely. I think this whole idea of stepping up is probably the big thing to focus on. But looking on the other side of the fence, we got Zoo, a relatively new team. We don't know too much about them. Hope they've got a couple different compositions tucked away in that menagerie of theirs. I mean, we did see with Lab, they pretty much run solely the same thing over and over. Hope they have something different to throw at us this time. But again, let's hope it's similar, though, to our last game, in which case the Lab did surprise us. And I think these rookie teams, these new members coming into Chinese esports, really good. Like you say, it is a time of rebuilding for these teams. A lot of them have been gutted, and now we have new blood. And actually a great season to get into Chinese Contenders. If you are watching right now, there's a lot of new storylines to be talking. There is, like these guys say, there is no LFZ anymore. This powerhouse, which we pretty much always expected to win with a full Korean roster. Most of these guys have gone to Overwatch League now. There is opportunity. There is opportunity to step up and rise to the top and get that creme de la creme going. Do you think that Zoo have what it takes, though?
I'm definitely excited to see what Zoo can pull out. I think one of maybe the most underappreciated themes of this season as well is that normally when you think of contenders in NA, NEU, you get these teams that come up through trials, have great performances in trials, but as soon as they get into actual contenders, they start completely changing up their roster, bringing in a load of maybe more washed up players that have been in contenders before looking for another shot, trying to fill their rosters with those kind of talents. So you only see a couple new faces every season. That's not the case. That's not the case with China here. It's a bunch of all new rosters for Alter Ego yesterday, Laboratory and Zenith and Zoo today. Lots of players we haven't seen before, and I am definitely excited to see what they can present us with.
Indeed. We do have our first map of the day, which is Lijiang Tower. We're going to be starting it off on Gardens. We're going to throw this over to the casters now. Rich Rad and Ryan Central. Take it away, boys.
Hello and thank you and everybody. I am so excited here to be casting with my co-caster Ryan Central. Ryan Central, how are you doing today, my sir?
A little bit under the weather, a little bit of a cough, so I'm going to try and make sure that doesn't pass on to your lovely ears. But this is a match that I'm glad to be back doing Contender Season 3. Lingan Esports, surprisingly, was a team that I never got to cast. And I was really excited and wanted to because, for me personally, they were the third seed in all of this. They only lost 2 games throughout their whole campaign for Season 2. One was which in the groups are Lucky Future Zenith, and one in the playoffs was against LGD Gaming, the top 2 teams, right? So it was a team that I think a lot of people had high regards for, but they didn't really fulfill their maybe plans there. So it's a team that, especially with so many players moving on to potential Overwatch League teams, some of which we don't know where they've gone or if they've gone anywhere just yet, Lingan Esports, I think, are a team that want to seize that opportunity. Zenith of Optimism, never really seen them before. Didn't actually come through Open Division or Trials. They sort of bought a slot like Subs and Monstars did in the EU. So they have a lot to prove as well to make sure that they're up to the same levels as some of the other teams and contenders.
And you know, you already see that aggression coming out by LGE. They're in the back, capitalizing on this point, starting to force back Zenith. They need to be extremely careful and even exchange, though, a tank for a support here. And now starting to have dominance. It'll be LGE getting that multiple kill in the back, one after another, completely taking out the supports of the tank and gonna switch it over in their favor very quickly and effectively here.
And just to sort of quickly look at the compositions, very interesting styles. I quite like what Lingan Esports are running here. They're running that typical triple support that you would see in that lovely Goats comp that lots of people talk about. But instead of running stuff like Reinhardt, they've got Diva, they've got Winston, and they've got Farah putting a lot of damage in. Zenith of Optimism started off by running a very typical dive with Tracer Genji. It's been a while since we've seen that. But now switching on to this anti-dive with McCree and Brigitte to try and break it apart. But the thing is, that's not really going to face Farah too much. Maybe the McCree, but certainly not the Brigitte.
And you do see Zenith getting tucked away in the back corridor here, needing to be careful, still trying to get some aggression. There's going to be a nice kill, though, onto Dudu in the back. It's going to be Dodo on the back. It's going to be Zelta getting that pick, following up here with that engage with the self-destruct by Duck, but really not gaining too much, needing to be very careful. It's going to be Chan getting taken out here on that Winston, and they're just starting to cause a lot of pressure. 45% in favor of LGE, starting to force it back, looking to retreat. Numbers advantage in favor of Zenith as they're looking to try and turn this back around, but still quite a bit of damage coming up on the high ground by Kami. Still having that rocket barrage available, holding on to it with the self-destruct going to come out as well by, ooh, nice double kill onto 2, taking out that high ground position, and Kami cleaning up quickly here as they're going to look to turn it right back around at 66%.
Well, a bit sort of difficult for Kami. The thing about Farah is that you want to be doing damage from a distance, obviously, but so much pressure goes on to having a good barrage, because if you don't really have that follow-up, it can be just a huge waste, and that's exactly what happened to Kami. As soon as he pulled the trigger, was blown up by Nanhai's Diva self-destruct that was graciously put onto the point. So a big loss there. We now see Zenith of Optimism Zoo stuck on the point. Hainu does get used to space out some area, but doesn't get a pick up to Kami in the sky. The sound barrier does get dedicated to this fight as Lingan Esports are slowly but surely starting to move their way onto the objective.
And again, Kami just unloading so much damage in the back. There's going to be the boop as well, getting him off the edge. Sleep no longer in the fight as they're going to follow up and immediately turn this back around. Great synergy. And again, there is so much harass coming from that high ground position, claiming an entire team kill here. And they're really going to have to hyper-focus here on Kami to try and turn this around.
It's going to be like really difficult, but I think the hardest part is past for Lingan Esports. When they're running this composition, it can take quite a while to retake an objective because the Fire doesn't really have the burst damage, and the Brigitte has to get to position to burst people down. Straight away, Molly does take Cloudy out of the fight, and the follow-up is there. So Lingan Esports still in control with only 88% on the point. Zenith of Optimism have to touch it now, and it's in such a bad spot. They're going to go into this fight a couple of people down.
And they have at least the 2 ultimates. They will have Zelta now starting off with that rally. It's going to be 2%. Are they going to even be able to get there? And they're going to come up short for this one.
It was just one of those things where I think they stayed in that final fight, the final engagement that they had at least, for far too long and weren't really sure how much time they had left. It was one of those easy things to go, all right, next fight, and then realize that, oh, we're on 90%. We should have either somebody goes down, tried to reset instantly, or just tried to get onto the point at that area. So it was really difficult for them to realign themselves with the objective, which can sometimes be something that they're, it's their first match in Contenders, so there's obviously going to be these sort of mistakes that people are going to make, such as maybe
even the jitters as well.
Together. Yeah, so it's quite easy for them to make that typical mistake of, oh, we need to play around the objective. But now Kami's going to stay on this far out on probably one of the best points in the game for the winged hero. What I'm surprised at is they're not running Mercy alongside. Kami doesn't need that extra support or damage boost on him. He's still doing quite a lot on his own.
And they have some massive aggression already, starting to force them into the corner. And the double boop off the end. Zelta and Cloudy being taken off the edge as a follow-up comes in by... Oh, that's going to be a great Brigitte pressure as well on the front coming out by Lijiang Esports as they are just dominating right now. Again, it's going to be Shuebe able to just press them into the corner. Kami just unleashing so much damage here, and they're going to easily take this first capture.
Again, it's just very difficult composition to move because Kami's now got sights on exactly where Zoo are going to be coming from. And there's a lot of pressure that goes onto Cloudy on the McCree to just be able to single-handedly take Kami down. And you can see the fact that he's using this cover, he's trying to survive, trying to get boops in and try and knock people back. And the follow-up's there, and it's so difficult for Zoo to keep pushing on through. They don't have the ultimates built up just yet, and even Kami doesn't have that barrage, but they have Transcendence on this defense, which just means that they have a backup option in case they need it. Right now, LG are just doing what needs to be done. Zenith of Optimism need a Zenith of Opportunity at this engagement, I suppose.
I mean, I agree, and they're just starting to rack up ult charge here, I mean, from both sides. But yes, again, Kami playing such a great positioning on the high ground, allowing them to not really get any sightline. And additionally, they're causing so much pressure onto Cloudy that he's not able to get the real sightline. And now they're going to transition into that back position, wanting to use the cover of the roof to see if they can manage to get through, but still raining damage overhead by Kami. Having that rocket barrage, most likely going to dive in here potentially for the opportunity. Will get Shuebe getting the kill onto Zelta. Numbers advantage here in favor of Lijiang Esports as they managed to just completely turn it around. Zenith getting overwhelmed again and still managing to hold on to 5 ultimates here.
The only thing they needed to dedicate was Rally, and to be honest, did they really need to dedicate that anyway? It's one of those good ultimates that you still find effective use out of it even after 20-30 seconds of using that ultimate, so gives Molly a little bit more health, which is important on that Zenyatta. And we are starting to see Zenith of Optimism starting to build up their ultimates themselves, but every single time that they come over that bridge, Kami's there waiting.
And that double kill on the start of that fight. And now we're going to get into this last 10% again. They're at the same point once again. They're going to have a difficult time getting back there. They have 8% to try and at least touch it into overtime, but they're already in an offensive position to really prevent them from getting through this doorway. Rally going to come out again by Zelta to see if they can give some protection and manage to get into the back, though, with that overtime. Looking to switch it back. Overzealous on the front line here coming out by LGE, and they're going to now hopefully try to turn it back. The Deadeye at least taking out Kami on the high ground, but they're hoping to maybe get this reposition in the back. Self-destruct now going to come out to see if they can zone them away, looking to switch it back into this overtime, trying to claim as much opportunity here, but it's becoming very difficult for them. Seeing if they can try and force them off. You will have iDodo in the back, also going to have K-Chan with that primal range, trying to thrash these players off the point by LGE, just hoping to keep this alive as they manage to get 2. Also the follow-up here by Kami on the Doomfist, managing to take it swiftly, and LGE is going to take this first map of Lijiang Tower.
They was totally in control. Absolutely no problem for them. There were a couple of engagements that they lost, but Otherwise, Zoo really struggled to take areas and points. You got to sort of bear in mind that Lingan Esports have a few changes of their own, so it's not the same composition, same lineup that they had in Season 2. They lost a lot of big players, as the analyst desk said. You know, people like Undead is a big example that you're going to lose out on. Yveltal on the sort of support lineup. But to be honest, Lingan played like they've been together for quite some time, and they just had that synergy and coordination to just win out those fights pretty extensively. They didn't really allow Zoo an opportunity to go in and even take the point in that second engagement. They only really got picks towards the end where they had ultimates built up that they had to use. So up until then, it was just a bit sort of lost for Zenith of Optimism. But saying that, Control is one of those quite scrappy sort of game modes, right? Where if you win the first engagements, you can often snowball to win out the rest of the map with ult economy. So I'll be interested to see how they do on hybrid, which will be next.
And like you said, you know, having that synergy in their composition, you saw it. There was just a very calm nature to them, that they knew exactly where they needed to be, how they wanted to engage this, using their positioning very well. And again, that Kami position, just consistently being aware of knowing where to hide, kind of tucking away, making sure to stay out of sight lines. But in the meantime, until we go into this next match of hybrid, we will just go to a brief break before we figure out which map they are going to select for this next match.
I met you on a Friday, downtown Avenue Way. I didn't know that you were gonna be my getaway. I swear I never learned, can't live without the burn. So I light it up and feel the rest. It's how you wanna be remembered. Doing broad side streets, cold like December. Is this what you came so far for? And I know you're worth more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. Why don't we go Is this how you wanna be remembered? Doing broad side streets, cold like December. Is this what you came so far for? And I know you're worth more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. So why don't we go and leave the city and drive past concrete? And I know it's so pretty, but I can't do it no more. Why don't we go and
Hello and welcome back as we are just completing the first match and going to go into the hybrid map selection. Again, it will be the choice of either the Hollywood map or Numbani between the two to see which of these, maps that they will move forward with. And, Ryan, I do want to say, with that last map, we saw a dominant nature coming out by LGE. And as the desk had said, there's a lot of opportunity with them. They seem like they've been playing synergistically and have a, increase in their win rates in the past from season 1 to season 2. What do you think some of the alterations could have happened on the side of Zenith to really kind of counteract that play in Lijiang Tower and even kind of moving forward here?
It reminds me of like back in the day where people would, how do we counter a Pharah? Like if we're in our own games, it's a really good Pharah on the team. Do we get like the McCree, the soldier? I think it becomes less of a how to counter the Pharah as such and how to do your best to actively ignore her. For example, on Lijiang Gardens especially, you just don't go over the bridge because you can get booped, you're wide out in the open, the Pharah's just above you, will just shoot you, and there's very little to stop. But if you go around the other way, you have a lot more cover, you can pull out the Reinhardt, try and like tank it out a little bit. It just seemed like their only option at that point for Zoo was to just go to McCree and keep everything else the same, right? And even having like a Brigitte there, whilst Brigitte is exceptionally meta right now, if the majority of the work that's been done by Lingan is Cammy on a Pharah, then you need to know, okay, like we need to kind of throw this out the window for now. If the map that gets chosen is saying, well, both Numbani and Hollywood are very vertical maps, like Hollywood's second point especially, I'd want to see more snipers coming out of both teams, like Widowmaker, Hanzo, once we get into those areas. Hell, even like New Torb on the Numbani first point is where where old Torb was really good, right? So there is that option there. I think Zoo will know that they're coming into this going up against like firm favorites potentially to take season 3 of the whole Contenders, right? So if they go into this with sort of a plan of this strategy, I think it's just going to be this time and time again. And I don't really want to see this go to like 4-0 to Lingan, but for the first map, they look very much in control. But then again, we just haven't seen an awful lot of Zoo. They might turn around and pull out some crazy strategies, but to be honest, that's China as a whole, right? They very much don't like to go what's meta in EU or NA right now.
Yeah, those traditional compositions, they're looking to stray against and not want to, follow up. And I mean, even as we saw, actually, we're also going to be able to see, and they did go with Numbani here. So it will be the selection of Numbani for hybrid. And again, there's a lot of verticality to this. So I feel that with the dominant play that we saw, by LGE on that first map, by the Pharah, that they're going to opt to use it as well. There's a lot of potential high ground coverage here to make sure that they can hide behind the sight lines and things. And I honestly agree with you as well. Going into this with that high elevation and position, that they're going to probably want to opt for that Widowmaker play to try and get a better opportunity against it versus what they had with that McCree at such a long distance.
It's just trying to work out what kind of strategies both teams really want to run, and it boils down to whatever heroes that Zoo are comfortable on, right? I remember seeing like their startup screen whilst we were preparing, and like their, it gives like, all right, this is the main tank player. Here's a picture of Winston up. The lineup that Zoo went for was Sombra, Brigitte, Zarya, Anna, Lucio, Hanzo. Like, it's not an awful lot to look at, but it's one of those things where you go, wait, what? It seems like they're a composition that, like, they're going to play whatever they're good at and just whatever strategizes. We saw Zarya solo attacking earlier today, and Lingan Esports are running New Torb on this defense. It can be on Pharah, but you've got to be honest, like, that's not a surprise really at this point. Zoo have instantly locked in on this dive com. This seems to be like a team that's trying to get together its coordination and prepare, not so much on the compositions, but trying to go in at this and play this very straight and narrow, I suppose.
And iDoDo already up there with that shield protection, using that Torbjorn turret to try and get some sightlines here just in the back position. And again, Kami on the front already starting to rain a lot of damage here. They're getting very low and need to be extremely careful about how they enter in through this street position.
They have some of the options on Numbani too to go either the low ground and stuff, and you could see Zoo priming their position, but it is so difficult because one of the things that Torbjorn has always been very good at is area denial. So as a Tracer and a Genji, how do you get into the backline if there's an insta-lock in Torbjorn? Dive is coming in, but it's so detached that we see the Winston not being able to get on the high ground too with Zoo, and instantly Nanhai loses the mech.
The sleep dart that allowed them to get a lot of damage onto them, isolating them away. Now you're going to see that aggression coming out here by LGE, just dominating. But an easy turnaround here. It's going to be both Zelta and Lazy getting that turn, getting the support Molly out of the fight there early so that they do still have a decent amount of time here. 3 minutes to go. They're trying to at least contest on the point, but really not gaining much value out of this engage, as now Kami does have the rocket barrage, and they have at least sleep with the nano boost here, as they're going to have to try and force a retreat and look to regroup, really.
And it looks so good for them. They got string together like a couple of picks, especially Zelta on this Genji that was, you know, smelt the blood in the water almost and was getting those picks. But the issue is that when you have somebody like Kami in the air constantly and very little to take him out, now Cloudy is over to try and contest that, but both teams don't run into Mercy alongside, so it says a lot about like the current state of Mercy. But then again, this is played in patch 1.29, so not the patch that we currently have on live. Those changes aren't in just yet, and this fight is still going fairly evenly. Zoo is starting to take control of Variant space though.
And you're going to see Duck also get the nice follow-up here onto Lazy, seeing if they can maintain this pressure on the defensive side. Self-destruct available, hoping to find it. And you are going to see Shuebe getting a double kill onto this team of Zenith as they still apply so much pressure here. Wanting to maintain it, looking to have, again, that now 2 minutes left. A lot of ultimates have been developed here by LGE. They're going in with 5 ultimates in this encounter when you see Zenith really hoping to have at least 4 coming up for this next engage.
They're gonna have a lot to go with. Sorry, I did spot the Mercy with the Valkyrie ready to go, so it's a strategy that seems to be working, but like I do also on the Aris on this high ground seem to be fairly comfortable. I've not really seen him drop to the low ground as much as you'd want to see. There's so much that Zoom managed to do at this point. Dragon Blade actually does come out. Can they take the point with this, however?
And they have the nice buffer, but the self-destruct gonna shut it down. Duck managing to get him as he does drop from the high ground. Still having the rocket barrage as well. Self-destruct now coming out by Zenith. Does get 2. It will get both Kami and Lengs on the back line. Having now that aggression once again in the back. You're trying to pressure them away. Non-high, almost getting taken out of the mech. Still surviving as they are gonna finally overwhelm this front line and look to transition back and start to capture this point.
You would assume at this point that Lingan Esports would give up this objective. Kami couldn't get the barrage off at any point. It was such a good Diva bomb from Nanhai, not only to get the picks, but to completely alienate members of Lingan Esports. So when the Diva went into chase, the burst damage got the pick onto Diva afterwards as well. And now actually LGE being pushed back quite a considerable distance. Azure trying to take as much space as possible, but saying that, Sleep goes down, and already LGE are on with a counter-attack.
And they're really trying to counter against Cloudy on that high ground, having that Diva and Pharah play just completely taking them out of the sky, and now starting to force them back to their spawn position. They have the rocket barrage still available, holding off on that, not wanting to use it just yet, looking to try and claim some dominance here on this high ground to see how they're going to try and persevere through this doorway. And Zenith is going to have, you know, a little bit of work cut out for them since they're just tucked around this corner.
And you can sort of see the positioning. Zenith are trying to take, they have a barrage, but it's so difficult to use. The Valkyrie, I do believe, our Sleep has just changed over, so now we're starting to see aggressive play coming out of Cloudy and the rest of Zoo. Look at Esports, really are just trying not to dedicate. They're just taking their time. They don't need to fight just yet. But Nanhai losing the Diva mech and having to self-destruct. It's a big sign that Lingan can push in here.
And that's going to be a remake to get back into it just before they manage to get the pick. Self-destruct high overhead now coming up by LGE. Seeing if they can claim 1 manages to get Sleep out of this. This is actually going to give them some momentum here on the defensive side. Getting that support play out. Not going to have that pharmacy composition as Molly gets the pick in addition. They're just completely dominating with now. It's also going to be Shuebe transitioning with that Tracer on the front line and still getting a lot of poke opportunity with now going into a decent ultimate economy. Having that 1 potentially 4 advantager against Zenith as they're once again going to be in this tight choke position with the management of high ground by LGE.
Well, Zoo, this is a very weird engagement. Zelta and Shuebe just waiting there. It seemed like just unalarmed. I don't know whether he just went AFK, just decided he was going to go to the toilet at this point. But as soon as he spotted Zelta, he ran away like some sort of like rabid animal. Lingan Esports now have to sort of back up because Zelta bringing out the Dragon Blade, only getting to pick onto Duck, and Kami straight out the sky. Now we're starting to see this move ahead. Zenith of Optimism looking a lot stronger than they did on Lijiang Tower.
Definitely, especially just with their, like, they're having the patience. They're coming in with these fights, even though they haven't been able to maximize as effectively as they think they could as a team, because LGE has been responding very well against their coordinated play here versus the control map that we now see on the hybrid. But they're being able to come together effectively, and you'll see Zelta getting that nice Dragon Blade high onto the far end. Here comes potentially the Pulse Bomb, seeing if they can slow it down. The Tracer play coming out by Shuebe with Rocket Barrage high overhead, but not going to gain too much, as they're only going to have 40 seconds remaining here to try and maintain this payload.
They only used Sound Barrier too, and it was nice play from the flankers. Shwebe being able to get the picks, not even needed to dedicate the pulse bomb, right, either. So they dedicated Barrage. Very weirdly, Cloudy seemed to not be able to get the picks, but does change over to Summer, so that might explain exactly why. A couple of ultimates are developing on the side of Zoo, but there is only 20 seconds left on the clock, so again, they don't want to be caught out like they were on Lijiang Night Market, where they struggled to touch the point that were losing people before the fight even happened. LG will be aware of that, and you can already sort of sense that Cammy switching over to the McCree is there to completely deny space. Again, another fight happening completely off the point. She won't be taking out Cloudy.
And that's going to give the numbers advantage here in favor of LGE. They managed to get onto this to keep it into overtime, but they're not going to be able to remove themselves from this payload and have to be very aware of their positioning. Self-destruct from both sides. Duck going to get one, but now it's going to be Nanhai getting two, so that they do now try to even it up. Zenith still looking to get some aggressive pressure on Zelta, but does go down on the Doofus. Not going to be able to sustain that outgoing damage as Shwebe continues to contest Sleep in the back, but it will be Cloudy on the return with the Tracer, able to get Shwebe and also I-Do-Do, as they are just nearing this checkpoint with 3.6 meters left to go. Still being very cautious, though, of how far they are from the payload, not wanting to get overextended, maneuvering away from it, even though there's a lot of harass with Cloudy, continuing to contest against that, and they get a nice follow-up. In addition, double kill with Nanhai securing it. Both of them just doing a stellar job here, focusing the target called to make this momentum still allow them to be in this fight, really.
Lingan Esports changing up their lineup yet again. Molly back onto Zenyatta. Cammy now switching over to Brigitte. It seems that as this map has gone on, Zenith of Optimism have managed to make this strength to strength, whereas Lingan almost have to cater to them, changing up their compositions to be very similar, getting off the fire, for example. So many Diva Bombs getting picks. Nanhai using another, does get it onto Molly. Some of these missteps, I suppose, coming out of both teams, being able to be caught out by some of these aggressive Diva Bombs, really shows that we're in the early weeks of China, and both teams still need to sort of make sure that they're not making as many mistakes as they are currently.
Agreed, and now they're going to have 45 seconds going into this. Again, they still have Zenith still at a decent spot, though, with their ultimate economy. They have both support ultimates, going to have a little bit of a switch here on Nanhai onto the Zarya, and they're looking pretty good right now. I think they do have a good opportunity here to transition with these last 30 seconds, but again, with this last push, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to maintain it.
Zenith changing to a very tanky composition, much like the final point with Nike involved, right? You want that Zarya, you want that right now. Soundbarrier does get used from both sides, though. Zelta is the only DPS on the side of Zoo, but there's a high chance Zarya and Nanhai doing so much work, they're so far away from Graviton, isn't going to have it for this next engagement, so it's all about pick potential right now.
Shwebe giving some nice space here to make sure that they can get the Deadeye quickly. Duck having the self-destruct as well, as Zenith is going to have to make sure once again that they stay on this payload. They cannot afford to step away from it now that the overtime has been active. Zelta with the Dragon Strike coming through in the back, trying to gain value out of it, but not going to have too much with it, as they managed to get back in time just before it now drops. Will be the Deadeye in the back looking to be cleaned up. Shwebe getting a nice pick here in addition onto Cloudy, as the whole entire team of Zenith does get shut down here as they approach the last checkpoint.
And the Cammy did such a good amount of work on the Brigitte to get that rally for that final engagement, just to keep everybody alive. You have to say, much better coming out of Zoo overall. They really struggled on the first engagement, but once that payload got going, once they changed up their composition to be a bit more dive-centric, which it seems that that's what Zenith really prefer, that's where they started to see really good work coming out. And it really forced Lingan to change up their composition on this defense. And really, the only problem was they just ran out of time towards the end. They really started to have that forward momentum. So looking a lot stronger, but still a lot to do if they want to go even in map score.
And, you know, as we've had some discussion before, you know, from the analysts and others, that, you know, Numbani, that last objective to push the payload, it becomes so difficult for the attacking team because there is really only two major choke point positions that you can prevent. You can watch that outer flank position towards the environmental section, where it just forces the hand of the attacking team that if you have a solid enough defensive positioning here, it really just becomes extremely difficult to penetrate through it, with depending upon the composition that the defensive side has. And I think, you know, LGE was doing a great job managing that and buying a lot of space for Kami and their damage dealers to really just sustain on that.
I'm really excited to see what sort of opportunity. I always say opportunity because that's just what I see with this team, right? Like, I think one of my favorite stories to come out of like the EU scene, for example, is you have this tournament that happened earlier this week with Samsung Morningstars, which was a team that nobody even heard of, being a lineup of, they went and won a tournament against some of those veteran teams, right, in that scene. So when I see a lineup of, all right, this is this team, they haven't come through up division, they just sort of full on bought a slot, how are they going to do? Because they can surprise everybody. So Lingan Esports have a lot to do. They're going to be running this sort of triple tank, triple support with a Winston instead. I think it was one of the places where this composition was early fought. Like, that's why it's been called Coats a lot, because it first came out of China. So Zenith really need to be careful here, but they are running dive, they are running the best composition to be able to take this out.
And LGE just moving so swiftly, already gaining 1 tick, forcing Zenith down. They had the disadvantage, having to drop to this low ground where they've already been able to secure the point. Now starting to get the 2nd tick and going to move this payload very quickly with 5 minutes and 40 seconds going into this next phase.
So aggressive, so quickly. You got to say that Lingan Esports have now got all the time in the world, 5.5 minutes to push through these next objectives. You can see the Zenith have to push all of the way back, even the Reinhardt charging back to the final spot just to make sure that he doesn't get caught out, because it all matters at this point. This composition, really strong. It's very similar to what we've seen a lot of in EU and NA at this time, a triple tank, triple support. But the difference mainly is that instead of running a Reinhardt, you run a Winston instead. Much less susceptible to being CC'd or taken out by a Doomfist or Sombra. The Zenith of Optimism now running this composition with a Sombra, with 2 tanks, triple support. So now Sleep is getting a pick, but both teams trading.
And they now, again, have that even exchange. It will be 5 for 5. We'll have some aggression now coming up by Non-High on the front with that Zarya, giving some nice protection of the supports. Nice Sleep Dart as well on the inner right-hand side, coming out by Sleep, trying to prevent that mobility in the back line with that Diva play. Still getting a little bit of momentum, though, having to fall back. Don't want to become overzealous here and need to really regroup as they're looking to reach this next checkpoint with 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Rally also going to give a nice buffer here to try and engage this as the Reinhardt on the front here. K-Chan for Zenith of Optimism gonna go down, unfortunately, trying to give some cover on the front, but still one after another. Schwebe getting the pick kill as well on the front with the rest of the team as they're just continuing to generate ultimates and now starting to transition into this last phase.
It really just looks like Zoo aren't really sure how the role of that composition works, and Lingan Esports have very well gauged to the Brigitte being able to set this up. It really is like Cammy being able to play those heroes and really shows the strength of character that a player like Cammy has on your squad. Brigitte, like Brampton actually coming out, so this is a very aggressive, looks already that Lingan Esports will be able to take this.
And that was so much damage. Well positioned, able to get the double kill by Schwebe with that position. And they're most likely going to get it here. Just under 3 meters to go. Nobody there to contest it. And that's going to be a completion here with LGE claiming victory on Numbani.
Very quick fashion. You would have thought as well with Zoo being on that attack and how well they seem to persevere and keep in that engagement that the match should last a lot longer, but Lincoln know exactly where their bread is buttered. They know the compositions that are used. It just seems like there's a very different level in class between the two lineups, but that's more of like Lingan Esports really performing there, playing really strongly, as opposed to Zoo underperforming. Granted, they're not doing as well as they maybe should be, but ultimately, it's just not going their way. Lingan looking just as good as they did in Season 2. They must be feeling pretty good about themselves right now.
And you know, you basically stripped the words from my mouth. I was going to say it's not that Zoo is playing badly. They're not by any means doing that. There's a lot of control, a lot of great play, you know, with the sleep darts. We've seen a number of them being able to really try and shut down that aggression. They've been trying to slow the momentum and even be very aware of their positioning. They fall back. They don't want to be out of position. They've responded. It's just you see LGE just playing such a great game and so confident in their movement, in their strategy, in their extended position. They know where they need to maneuver to and not go any further, and they have that high ground position, and it's unbelievable. I mean, seriously, it's quite interesting to see how this is going to go with these last 2 maps that we're going to have. And now, before we do go into this next one, we will go ahead and allow our analysts to also take a little bit of time just to break down what potentially Zoo is going to have to do here to maybe turn this around for these last 2 maps. Gentlemen, take it away.
This is a reoccurring thing with me muting myself, and you know what, at some point I'm just going to become a host, and that's absolutely fine. But now we come back to the desk. Me, Albion, Vals, we're gonna talk to you a little bit. We're gonna take a small amount of your time to just go through these games, okay? And now China is a strong and independent region that don't need no goats. We got so many different compositions coming out so far. We're gonna take it back to Lijiang to begin with. Now, Vals, LG's backline compared to Zoo, that it was pretty incredible. We saw Lazy and Sleep, and they were kind of living up to their names a little bit.
Absolutely, Lazy and Sleep kind of not fully up to standard, maybe had a couple weak moments. But he was talking about LGE's backline. I highlighted Lengzu a lot pre-game, seeing what his performance would be like, kind of stepping into a Veltel's shoes. And so far, he's done a pretty good job. Had a career game on Lijiang Gardens, getting so many boot kills. Feels great as a Lucio, being able to just knock people off the bridge and such. Show up in the kill feed, yelling in comms, "Hi Reddit," you know how it works. And then
it's a hell of a feeling.
yeah, even when we went over to Numbani and he started playing a bit more Mercy to complement Kami's Farah, still great positioning, staying out of harm's way, shades of a Velton once again. I'm really impressed so far with how Langzer is stepping up into this role. And again, such a strong backline, it's still a strength of Lingan Esports, and it means they can worry about how Duck and Shoaib are having to adjust into new roles instead.
Yeah, definitely. A new roles again. Kami, he's still kind of in a complementary role, but he is playing the Pharah now. And a Kami, I believe it does mean God in Japanese. And this guy was role playing it. He was spending most of the times in the heavens on Garden. The guy was so far up in the sky you could barely see him, and Nanhai just couldn't even use the boosters to get towards him. There's a real presence in that game. But what were the particular things that stood out to you, Albion?
I think when we were going into the series, we were questioning kind of who from the DPS was going to step up for LGE, and ultimately it was kind of both. Like you mentioned, Kami on the Pharah he's played a lot of that Pharah, and he's been relatively untouched. He's been playing it pretty safe, been playing around buildings really well to not take too much poke, because a lot of time he actually hasn't had a mercy pocket. But Shoaib on the flip side has been stepping up himself, I think, and especially on Numbani, when he swapped over to that Tracer, he was getting a lot of value out of that. And it's a pick that right now I think is a little bit underrated in the meta, especially when you're in a dive mirror matchup, because people kind of forget, I think, that Tracer into things like Genji and Doomfist has all of the mobility in the world to avoid their cooldowns, and you can just keep putting clips into them and keep that pressure up. And it really works in your favor when you're trying to counteract the enemy who has the snowball advantage on you, and you can get the momentum back for you just by playing Tracer. And it's largely kind of what's going on with this series right now, where it feels like Zoo isn't really considering what's happening to them. They're not really swapping their heroes at all. There are some there are some fairly obvious swaps, like going back to Gardens on Lijiang. They could have swapped Somber Tracer and they could have pressured the Zen in the backline instead of walking in on this Brig McCree comp, just getting pounded by Pharaoh, constantly. They got to turn their brains on. They got to think about what's going on, because right now in Overwatch, sticking to your guns and not swapping is just strictly wrong. You have to be swapping constantly. That's just unfortunately how the game goes. It's just a big game of rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, and you mentioned this as well, as whilst we were chatting during these games, is that you called this meta the good hero meta. There are many heroes that you could select from. They're all quite good at the moment. You got Sombra, Doomfist, you got all these GOATS compositions you can move into, and you absolutely cannot just stick to your guns. The same guns do not work anymore. You need a whole armory to your own arsenal at the moment. And what stood out to me in particular is LGE were making some very impactful switches, specifically on point C of Numbani. They made a switch over the Brig McCree, understanding that they don't need all that much disengage anymore because point C is so enclosed. They just need to hold it down, and that's exactly what they did, and they played it really well.
Absolutely. I'm a little bit surprised it's taken this long today to see our first 3-3 composition, where we saw Lingan moving over to floats, as a lot of people are calling it, moats, whatever you want to go with. It's not kind of like the standard 3-3, only you swap the Winston over to Reinhardt, and then it becomes a lot more about how you can play around your Zaya's bubble placements in particular. I'm a little bit surprised it taken us that long to see it today, being as it was a very prevalent composition during the matches yesterday, so a little bit of a difference in play style between some of these teams. Definitely showed how effective it's been so far. Very oppressive composition, and it wouldn't surprise me if we see Lingan pulling it out a little bit more throughout the rest of the series.
Definitely. Now we are heading over into Horizon Lunar Colony, where there are a lot of compositions that can be played here that you might need to counter. So this is a big time for Zoo to really change up their playstyle, see what they can switch off to, start to really understand what LGE want to do. And we'll be heading into Horizon Lunar Colony very shortly. So we pass this one back to the casters, Ryan Central and Rich Rat.
Hello. Thank you so very much again for throwing that back to us. And yes, as you were just saying, there is going to be a lot of opportunity here for Zoo to kind of change their composition. And, you know, Ryan, what do you think you're going to see here with that alteration? We already can kind of see, you know, a little bit of a change. It's going to be, you know, having that Moira play now, going to see Sleep on it with the Lucio, which we see very much, you know, on the assault position here for the attack. Do you think this is going to really benefit them moving forward on this point?
It's such a difficult map to do it on. That's the point of like just Horizon. It's typically where, like, seeing this in the past that we saw, like just briefly mentioned, Mox Comp, that Winston and D.Va being able to take little areas of high ground while still running effectively the same composition. It just turns it, being able to take that high ground is important, but considering that IDoDo is running a reset and they're playing this sort of anti-dive with Junkrat and Widowmaker on this defense, it's going to be so hard to move. So you can see that Zoo have no interest in taking the high ground. They're just going straight for the point.
And they're going to do it very well here, getting that mobility by the Lucio. Lazy doing a great job, as they do have some great defensive positioning. On the high ground, though, you do see Shuebe trying to find some sightlines here and not netting too much out of it, as they almost gain a tick, forcing them now to drop to the low ground, but still keeping a few members up top to try and get that assisted damage. Kami as well, looking for that bottleneck here to try and get some explosive damage, looking to get that Riptire as well, trying to see if they can claim something out of it. Sleep going to go down as well, and there's the follow-up with the Riptire onto Lazy. 2 supports down, only one remaining by Cloudy, and there's the third finally coming out by Kami, and that's gonna just be enough here to make them have to fall back and regroup.
That's why Junkrat is so good in this composition, and they're just managing to stall out the rest of Zoo. This is just getting worse for the when it comes to time. Rally is ready on this defense, as is self-destruct. Some of the self-destructs that we've seen so far have been like the most picks or kills that I've seen in any game with both teams, still managing to get those picks with the ultimate. Usually you see it to either recycle an ult or to take control of space. Not so much getting elimination. So both teams maybe setting a foot wrong now and again and being caught out in a lot of situations that really at this tier they shouldn't be. So now we're going to start to see Zenith pushing up again. I believe taking the high ground role this time. They don't have any ultimates other than Coalescence, which would be good against this Orisa barrier. So maybe they're just going to plan to burn down that front door.
And they're doing it very aggressively on this catwalk, forcing a few members to drop down, not wanting to be too overwhelmed, as now they have the high ground position. They can look to really pick their fight here and who they want to target with that advantage. But Kami actually still going to be able to maintain that upper position. Going to start raining down a lot of damage as the Graviton's now going to come out here by Zelda, seeing if they can get the self-destruct to follow up. Does get 2. It will be Duck and IDoDo, but now with Shuebe in the back getting 2 onto Sleep and to Non-High to try and even it up. It's not going to be enough though, but that was a great reposition here in the back line to try and stall it out.
Still fighting here. LGE is still like holding the front door, like such solid play coming out of Zenith to completely isolate Shuebe on the Widowmaker. You can sort of see the awkward cut with the Widowmaker from a distance be like, oh yeah, I'm not really doing too much from over here. They've just taken the point, so I'm just gonna awkwardly head back straight away. So we're gonna head onto the point. They don't have their Coalescence, but they have a rally coming up, which is big. The sound barrier used too, so they're gonna run straight through this Orisa, take out the Bongo. Don't know if this is gonna get anything, but Zushan is Keishan is taken out straight away. Very scrappy fight.
Now also going to have the D-Mech. That is not what they need right now. They tried to use their momentum from that first point after you saw LGE start to fall back, but now they're starting to really use that respawn advantage and positional advantage here against Zenith, since they had a little bit of an overextension. That Riptire also claiming K-Chan early, as we saw. It just really started to spell disaster. Once you lose that Reinhardt, it can just be devastating to the remaining portion of your team.
Now we might be seeing a couple of changes out of Lingan, switching it over to the Winston. Again, just really good at being able to sort of hop around these bits of high ground, especially since I may have spotted the Cloudy switched over to Widowmaker 2, where if you completely leave them exactly like that, Cloudy's going to be able to get those picks. And the aggressive nature on this attack with this composition, with the ultimates that Zoo have, it's going to be really difficult for Lingan to hold on tight, but they're still going to try if they possibly can.
Sleep now going to activate that Coalescence with Duck, looking to potentially find an opportunity to self-destruct high overhead, but still managing the positioning well. Contesting now towards the end of it, forcing them back. There's the self-destruct, tucking it high behind the pillar, able to claim 2. It is going to be K-Chan and Zelta going down. Both tanks eliminated here, as that's going to be only 1 remaining. Non-High all alone, D-Mectin remaining, and just left for bait for the team of LGE.
Stalling out this D.Va slowly. Non-High has to regroup. There is a Graviton ready, or about to be ready, on the side of Zoo. and there's no defensive ultimate on Lingan's side. So if that could catch quite a few of this Lingan defense, then that might be enough to turn this fight. No percentage made on this second objective, though. 3.5 minutes on the clock.
Now just about to get Infrasight here. Ooh, and Cloudy going to be immediately taken down here by Kami. Now on the Doomfist. Great pick early on the side of LGE as they're going to try and get some positioning now on the high ground in the back, as you also see them wanting to wait. They've got 3 minutes and 15 seconds. Still a lot of time here for them to get back into this, though.
One thing for sure that there is going to be a lot of interesting play on this side. Lingan Esports switching over to the Zenyatta. As I said before, there was no support ultimate, but we are going to see Lengths have been able to use it, but not in time. The Graviton does get used, and the Primal Rage is able to keep Idudu in this fight. Doesn't go anywhere. Sunbury gets dedicated. Instead of dedicating a lot, but nothing seen just yet.
And not gaining much at all out of it, unfortunately, having to waste that ultimate by Zelta. And now the self-destruct high overhead by non-high going to be easily dodged out of the way, hiding behind a terrain, as it's now going to be Idudu getting the follow-up. Double kill here onto Cloudy, as they're still continuing to get the picks. Not just for Shuebe yet, trying to see if they can get some shots here to maybe keep themselves into this fight as they aggress forward with Kami now in the Meteor Strike. Nice engage as well, getting the follow-up here onto Lazy, trying to dominate this pressure, gaining one tick, almost having the second, as Meteor Strike is going to look to try and shut it down. Once again, just this defensive side by LGE. Even though they gave a little bit of the point, they're still just being able to hold together now.
If you got ID there, Diva, sorry, we can't let you through. Nanhai taken out again really late by the two belly tanks of Lingan. So far in control, they really using space, and Shuebe now on the Widowmaker knows exactly where Zoo might come from. And now we're starting to see Zoo switching over to that very typical dive comp. They have Coalescent, so they still have a Moira for the time being. It's so difficult for them, and they're switching up their composition so often that they're not really getting much use out of big ultimates. Even like a Graviton and a Sub-Barrier, dedicated a couple of fights ago, wasn't getting much. But almost 2/3 on this final point. Nanhai again might be isolated here, might be asked for that ID just one more time.
And you see Duck actively respond to that, separating the Winston and Diva, getting it a follow-up now by Idudu onto Sleepy, just continuing to dominate pressure in the back as well, looking for that Lucio pick here on this outer left-hand side, but getting some assistance. And again, this tank line coming out by LGE, just consistently aggressing on this back line and not allowing Zenith to just hold strong at all. Another late stagger here. They're going to sleep it, and by the time 60 seconds remaining, and that right there is going to make this last attempt by Zenith the only opportunity for them to potentially claim this.
I think the tactical crouching from Zenyatta there was just showed how bad it was getting. So many ultimates built on this side of Lingan that they just don't need to dedicate, and I'm surprised that just hasn't left yet at this point, just gone home. Like, I just don't want to deal with this anymore. Every single time getting stalled out for a good amount, and so much time being wasted on Zoo's side. Infrasight used a little bit prematurely, maybe out of Shuebe, but they want to know where Zoo are coming from. You currently see where everybody is. It just stalls for a bit more time, means that Zoo have to rush onto the point yet again.
And they're just spending so much time right now, again, seeing if they want to figure out a way to get there. And they don't have the ultimate economy to really contest against it. You're going to have Cloudy go on to the Widowmaker to try and contest against Shuebe in the back. But really, again, it's going to be that Widow v Widow in the back. Hopefully going to have this self-destruct coming out by Nanhai to hopefully maybe open up the floodgates for them. But there's an early kill here coming on to Zelta, taking them down, already starting to hold strong as they're going to try and keep it into the overtime, wanting to make sure that they sustain on it. Self-destruct going to come out, not going to really gain any value here as the ultimates are unloaded by LGE. Idudu just harassing in the back, wanting to take out this Lucio as they continue to just stick to that support, shutting them down. Molly getting the D-Mech and the follow-up on Nanhai, and that's going to be a great hold here for point B.
Not the perfect hold. They did see, Zoo did see some progression made on that objective. They're going to be quite annoyed that they died with two ultimates. They had Sound Barrier that they never got to use, which was a huge loss and a huge opportunity lost for them. Now they are on the defense, and they need to be really careful that they don't get steamrolled in the same fashion as they did on Numbani. Like, they need to be very careful of the time restraints that they have. Maybe not to dedicate too much to the first point, and they get snowballed on the second. It's just something that they need to be very cautious and careful of, because Horizon is quite well known to be able to be one of those objectives where people can really over-dedicate too much trying to defend on that first point. And when the second point rolls around, they just don't have enough to deal with it. And Lingan Esports, really solid hold on the second, but a big mistake on the first to even let that progression go all the way up to enable Zenith to take a point, right? So
Agreed.
they're a team that are looking to be really strong and firm favorites throughout this whole season, but even they're starting to make some pretty substantial mistakes. And against some of the bigger, better teams, that could be a loss easily.
I mean, even because again, you saw the reposition by Schwabe on that Widowmaker, and again, they were still finding sidelines and getting kills, but they were so spread out trying to accommodate the positioning by Zenith, like you said, that those little pitfalls can influence major fights as, you know, the rest of this season is going to go on here for Contenders. So I agree with you very much that it's going to be interesting to see, you know, what they take from this, and hopefully they can, you know, refine that moving forward. But, you know, with Zenith coming out here on this attack, or on the defense right now, it's going to be interesting to see how LGE is really going to contest against them, and if they're going to be able to steamroll through this defensive positioning here with that Orisa on the high ground.
Looking at compositions, you got to say that Zenith of Optimism should have the upper hand, and I say should with a lot of emphasis, because Lingan Esports is such a solid team when it comes to these compositions that they might still be able to run over it. For this one time, paper might beat scissors, but straight away Zelta's getting a pick onto iDoDo, which shows some good promise that they've got the right comp. Lingan Esports might need to go and change back, because this anti-dive is really strong out of the defending squad.
I highly agree. I mean, they were able to immediately respond to that engage by iDoDo, quickly turning that focus by Zelta, shutting him down right away, getting the DMEC as well, and they're really going to have to reevaluate it potentially moving forward, and you may see Duck look to switch. No, actually, they're going to hold on to it. They're not going to go ahead and transition to that, and as long as they can continue to maintain this high ground without really any bypass, they're just going to have to see him forced to the side.
Cloudy trying to sort of go on a flank, trying to find a pick, but Brigitta's staring right at him through the shield. So now Lingan Esports are very close to the point, and it's a case of whether Zenith drop to the low ground. I think there's a lot of emphasis that goes on to Keishan, where he's playing chicken. Actually, no, LGE are going to take the fight to the high ground. They're going straight to them, try and break them apart a little bit, and straight away Laser goes down.
A little bit of mind game there. That's going to be Schwabe getting a double kill onto both supports now. What a reposition. You thought it was going to force them down to the low ground. Zarya now getting that extra damage. Schwabe, a triple kill in total. Supercharger not going to net them anything on that defensive side. So much energy damage coming out here by that Zarya play. And that was really interesting to see. You thought they were going to transition onto the point, trying to force them down from the high ground, but they bought enough time to really transition up to the top and then take them head on.
Well, Zenith of Optimism didn't expect it at all. So it was one of those things where they were completely caught out. A lot of that team wasn't together to predict that dive coming in. So really well played from Lingan Esports to just bide their time, wait for resources like speed boost to be up and ready. And again, they're taking that snowball. Nano boosted Cloudy on the Div comes out to try and get this diva out of mech. Otherwise, though, they're managing to hold. There's still a lot of time in the clock. Oh, just less than 6 minutes.
And they did a great job getting that out. Unfortunately, no follow-up here coming out by Cloudy. Still trying to get some harass, though, on the defensive side. Having to separate away, looking to chase the supports out as well by Nanhai to see if they can get those late staggers to buy them a little bit of time here. Nice job with the follow-up by Zelta. Even though there's a pick-off by Molly, they still netted value out of that. They are now going to look to try and buy some time here, look to get some positioning. They're nearing that quad ultimate charge here on the side of LGE, but they at least still have for Zenith of Optimism with the rally going into this, and going to have the Meteor Strike for a great zoning mechanism.
It might be mostly used to get out of situations so if Cloudy gets caught in. You have a Brigitte on this attack. The rally actually goes so aggressively, taking out Zelta straight away. The Graviton has been used, but I don't think it actually catches anything at all. With a Meteor Strike, Cloudy coming through, straight away taken. Lingan Esports looking to be on top of this one.
Yes, indeed, they're just doing so much on this push and netting so much more out of it. You see iDoDo getting a double kill onto both supports again. Self-destruct high overhead, needing to give some coverage. Shield to maintain that impact as they are just going to look to try and take this. Hopefully the respawn advantage is going to come in for Zenith of Optimus. And now they're going to have that Zelta switch onto the Wrecking Ball, trying to get back out here again with the nano boost onto Nanheim. Going to get stunned effectively again, just completely demecking that Diva. No real contest against them, and hoping to get the rest of them out here. Zelta again getting a lot of harass, but the Primal Rage going to be forced as well by iDoDo. Nice reposition by Cloudy to try and engage, but will go down, unfortunately, pick after pick. They've already managed to get one tick, looking for the second. Numbers advantage, 6 versus 1 contesting on the point now as they just continue to straggle out. They've got a lot of time to wear, hoping for it, but the Graviton to secure the spacing as LGE is going to claim victory here on Horizon Lunar Colony.
You got to say that it's not really a massive surprise at this point, because Lingan are looking so good right now. I think we're starting to see a little bit more coming out of Zoo, but ultimately they can't keep up. It's just so difficult for them to sort of play
rough.
to Lingan's strengths. And it seems like a lot of comparisons can be made to like the British Hurricane, I feel, for especially with like Albion on there. Just the ability to run different comps and look comfortable on all of them whilst doing so. So LG looking a really solid team right now. Started the season off perfectly. Couple of notes what they've gone a bit flat on, especially on that first defense of Horizon. But they've completely won this one out. I think they could definitely go on ahead, maybe clear this out 4-0. Zoo, not the start that they were hoping for.
And I mean, honestly, again, like we said, it's not that they're doing terribly. They're just coming up short, in this encounter where you do see LGE just playing so well, and just continuing to be on this aggressive side. They have so much control, and honestly, just that little bit of it's the confidence, especially when it comes to that mind game, like where they know they're gonna try and tilt and just do something a little bit that's a little more unorthodox, and it's causing trouble for Zoo to really respond to it. As we saw on that catwalk position, you saw them in that, that window port to try and contest against it and see if they can maybe get some early pick damage, but they were just like, where'd they go? Are they going to go around the back? Are they going to contest on this point? Transitioning to the catwalk, overwhelming them with I do, and just really not gaining much out of that high ground defensive position any longer.
I'd say that LGE are really good at being able to take and control space. It's all of those really subtle plays that they seem to have that they're coming out on top. And it seems that a lot of those fights and engagements that you would assume that would be quite level, LG always seem to have the advantage, either psychologically, position-wise, or just have the better cutting edge with being able to win these fights out pound for pound. So currently, LG just showing why they were strong contenders last season. Zoo, I don't think that maybe we're looking too much into this. Maybe we're just sort of not so much assuming that they were going to lose this, but not putting too much weight onto this result. It's how they play against some of the teams that came out through Contenders trials or some of the weaker teams in this region that's going to make sure that they don't get relegated back to Contenders trials at this rate for Season 4.
And, we'll be able to see if LGE is going to be able to clinch that fourth and final match to make it a 4-0, or Zoo is going to be able to get one on their own here to make it a 3-1 as we do go to a brief break just before we go into our last map of Escort.
Tell me if you wanna stay. We could fly night and day, yeah. Tell me where you wanna go. We could fly to the stars, yeah. Tell me if you wanna stay. We could fly, yeah.
Hello and welcome back to the fourth match now that we are going to have. It will be the map selection of Dorado for the escort map, seeing if Zoo is going to be able to maybe claim the one victory here today. Going into this, it's already been 3-0 so far with LGE doing it in a very dominant fashion against Zoo. And honestly, you know, as we were kind of talking during the break, what do you think is going to have to happen here, Ryan? Do you think that they're going to have to say, what do we want to play to our strength here? Or do we think that this is a map that maybe LGE isn't as strong on? Which way do you think they might be thinking?
Like, they can't ignore the fact the map difference is still a strong factor. If there's a chance that they could come out and win this one by playing a strategy that they might not want to play, it's still worth doing because you don't know how much difference that one map is going to make, especially in China where it feels like a lot of the results can be very much 4-0s in a lot of cases, that there can be a huge disparity between some of the teams, especially now where you have so many players and teams leaving to join the Overwatch League, where like the power vacuum, as Val said right at the start of this cast, is huge. So you do get, especially in the early days, you get a lot of these like very fluctuating results that by week 4 or 5 might be completely different. So I think Zoo need to go into this and go, right, this is the meta, this is what's going to be this style from now on. Granted that there's no patch change, what they're playing on week 1 will be the same as week 5. They need to find that strength and just keep practicing and honing that down, because that can be the difference when they're playing against teams at their very much to the same level that they're on.
And you see Lingan Esports responding very quickly, seeing what the composition is. They notice that Cloudy's going to play that pharmacy composition with Lazy, but they do have the Widowmaker pick going into this. So they have that advantage slightly as they're going to hopefully get that pick, maybe just about to do so, coming up short here, as they still continue to make sure that they're going to fall back, wanting to look into this choke point here, as Cloudy's still looking to get some shots between these buildings.
It's the patient play coming out of Lingan. You can almost cast it like in a golf voice, because of just the heroes that have been played currently is so procedural. You have Zelta that's going to be trying to go into backline, trying to get a bit of that excitement going, gets a dash through and the reflex, but Zoo are now trying to pick space. Ooh, now they're actually succeeding on it too.
Yeah, Non-High and Cloudy coming in big right here, getting both Molly and Kama, and they're just going to start to push it back. Easy turnaround, though, and it was a quick double kill coming out early for Zenith in their favor, but now it's going to be Lingan Esports trying to get it back. Rez going to come out, though, to make sure that they can maintain this, quickly retreating to try and survive through it, as they've done a really good job here. That was a great accelerated push with Zelta getting the engage in the back on the Genji and still throwing quite a bit of damage here by Cloudy overhead, since they do not really have that position with the Widowmaker.
Jorebi is very close to having an infra set. At this point, they kind of know exactly where everybody on Zoo is, so there's just all of these like micro engagements happening. K-Chan taken out, and now Cloudy being the main focus out of Duck straight away. But that's the thing, that Cloudy had that barrage ready. That's the only ultimate on the side of Zoo that they have currently. So LG now starts to push back a little bit, and they have a Riptide for this next push.
I mean, 5 ultimate economy going into this. That's just massive. And yes, Kami, I guarantee you will try and get a quick lead here with that Riptire to see if they can get the couple backline members, as they're going to have to be very careful trying to penetrate underneath this archway. Cloudy going to try and find that Widow v Widow contest to hopefully get Shweeby, as now they're going to aggressively pressure in the back and do get the DMAC. That is not what they need right now for this engage, wanting to see if they're going to hold on to it. Riptire still available with their ultimates, and they're looking to now use the infra site. You will see Shweeby getting some vision on where their positioning is, and they don't want to see Zelta look for that flanking position again and be outmaneuvered here.
Again, as I said earlier, like LG are just so good at being able to take control of areas and the tempo of the game. Like Zoo don't seem comfortable. They like to run dives, so they want to play those fast tempo, sort of being able to stack those kills very quickly. But a lot of these engagements throughout the whole of the match have just been so slow. Like Lingan have slowed down the pace of these games so much by what compositions that they're playing, that right now so much time just gets wasted.
Ooh, Kami able to get one with it just before it's taken down with K-Chan. Transcendent's going to be forced out as well to give some great assistance here, but they did force 2 ultimates out of them, so they're trying to, at least get a few here since they have a little bit of time. But again, this is going to be their last opportunity, so it will be not only the nano boost, but the self-destruct here available. And if IDudu gets that primal rage out, it's going to be very difficult going into this 3-3 ultimate economy for each team.
Leslie on the Lucio now to try and push in a bit more with the tanks. Cloudy really struggling to get much effective use on the Widowmaker. Has just been out-positioned or out-controlled, that he can't really get an avenue or a headshot on the target. Granted, he's stood right in the sort of main doors, so I guess Lingan Esports will know that he's there. But trying to sort of maybe open up a way for his team to push in. But now IDoDo taking out Nanhai yet again.
And the Nano Boost going to come out onto K-Chan, though, trying to see if they can get the follow-up in the backline. But Molly barely surviving against K-Chan, but responding so quickly to pick them off. IDoDo looking to get back and cycle around to see if they can make sure that they can prevent this mobility on the payload as it's forcing him away. Overtime at least activated, trying to get there as quickly as possible. But there's the Primal Rage starting to thrash them away from it. Nobody going to stay near it, and that's going to be a great hold here coming out by LGE.
The thing that you don't really get to see from our perspective, or even if we were in like the voice box, I'm sure we won't understand because I don't think any of us speak Chinese. But like the ability, like there's probably a lot of coordination and information that gets handed around, right? That's why Sombra, we've seen surprisingly a good amount of Sombra in the Chinese region as a whole. Granted, she's a very good hero, but in the West, typically you might see her be dropped for a bit more tankier options, to say the least. But that information that is coordinated with the rest of your team, I think that's why LG came out on top in that situation, right? Where they just knew, all right, they're coming from this direction, this player's here, I'm being dove on. Even in situations where it looked like Zoom might be able to come out on top with a Dragon Blade or whatever, you didn't see LG dedicating too many ultimates. They just had the Transcendence, they had a Riptide, they still had ultimates left after a fight that ended up descending into chaos, really. So they are a coordinated team. They seem really difficult to make sweat, and Zoo just have no control over positioning, the tempo of engagements. Even when they get picks, Lingan Esports seem to be able to come back and reinforce themselves quicker than Zoo can completely clear out Lingan. So it's just a masterclass, really, that's coming out of LGE, and Zoo really need to take note on where they can perform better for this next game.
And again, that's kind of like what we've cycled back to the couple times, saying it's not that they're playing badly. Like that positioning by Zelta, getting into the back with the Genji, assaulting, finding that gap. Even though they did get the early pick onto him, it allowed a little bit of, you know, uncomfortability to them on that defensive position, starting to net some kills and some opportunity. But again, Lingan Esports just constantly responding, being like, we know what to do in these clutch moments or in these intense moments.
They have that experience and it's shining through. Like now it's a perfect example. They come out and dive. They want to have an aggressive push. They could go the same competition that they run on defense and just try and slow it out, almost bore Zoo to death. We can get those eliminations that way. But they're going for a very aggressive push, but they're not stupid enough to sort of fall for traps. Granted, IDoDo does go down, but it's one of those situations that you instantly saw Cammy jumping out. They're going to take the time because the payload is still moving, almost uncontested.
And again, they've already just had enough time to generate some ultimate here. You see Zelta getting that Riptire very soon. That's going to be what they really want to try and at least have going into this next one, because again, the aggression is so strong. If they can get that early pick here on Lijiang Esports, that they may have the opportunity to try and halt it. Now getting IDoDo in the back, trying to get some aggression here to see if they can close it out. But Zelta getting the pick, doing a great job getting that damage with also the micro rockets on the high ground, still looking to isolate them away. Zeke-chan on the front, K-chan on the front, continuing to hold strong as well on that Orisa. They're giving a lot of support and assistance to them. The Widowmaker finding shots, Cloudy gaining value with the entire team as they're coming together really well here, having 2 minutes and 40 seconds still to go.
They're sort of taking a leaf out of Lingan's book at this rate, but Lingan Esports, very early actually, Riptide coming out of Zelta. He's trying to clear stuff in the backline because there are a couple of Lingan Esports members scattered around, so maybe worth holding for that next push. Was maybe scared of what Shwebby can do in the backline, but ultimately I feel that this dive that's coming out of Lingan Esports could be coordinated a little bit better. I remember seeing like a clip of IDoDo jumping in, meanwhile Duck was diving in a completely different direction after somebody else. So there is an element of Lingan Esports need to sort of work on some of these mistakes, but right now they're still been very aggressive with how they're trying to push this.
Nice job getting that supercharger out of the way early by K-chan as they get the follow-up immediately after. Now the assault. Kami looking to get the outplay here on Cloudy on the high ground with the Widowmaker, seeing if they can get it as the momentum still occurs into their favor. Dragon Blade available as they are just approaching this point. Starting to cycle back, looking to get those last few picks to make this payload continue pressuring forward as they are just under 10 meters, getting very close, potentially going to get it here right now with 3 meters left. Is anybody going to touch it? Managing to get on it. Still going to buy some time. K-chan on the Doomfist, looking to get a pick, but going down immediately as Sleep is also going to get there in time with the Wrecking Ball. Trying to contest IDoDo, still having so much aggression on the front. That's going to be it. They will be able to force them back. LGE claiming the 4-0 win here on the matchup today. And that's just going to be, I mean, something that's we're not too surprised with the way that they've been playing today.
I think you could sort of tell from like the first map that we saw Lijiang that this might be a very quick series. Lingan Esports, not the perfect run, I suppose. Well, like scoreline, yes, perfectly, but I think they are a good enough and dedicated enough team to even look back at this game and go, all right, we should mod review this. This we could have done differently. Maybe we should try this next time, because whilst they said with Zoo, it's a case of like they want to try and beat the teams in and around them in the skill level to make sure that they can come out on top in those situations. Lingan Esports need to prepare themselves for some of the bigger teams that they're going to be matched up. So, like, there's still a lot for these teams to prove. It's only the first week in. Perfect start for Lingan Esports. However, Zoo need to be careful that this isn't a sign of the coming season for them in Chinese Contender Season 3.
Definitely. And, as we are going to conclude it here with the 4 maps that we did have, we will let the analysts and our hosts really take this a little bit further and start to break down maybe those finer details that even ourselves, haven't gotten a chance to discuss. So take it away, gentlemen.
Hello, welcome back to the desk once again. I've got Albion with me and Vals. We're going to take you through these last 2 games. LG putting up a pretty stellar performance, actually. I think there were a couple of mistakes made here and there, but overall, I was very impressed with LG and how they played. I think they invest resources effectively, and that's something that we can definitely discuss on the desk. And coming back to Horizon, I think there were just times where Zoo, they come out with these compositions that in theory should work, especially against the Orisa composition they're holding on the high ground with the Junkrat. This is a very easily run overable composition, right? You run at it and you can kill these players with the Goats composition. Instead, they're rotating underneath, giving the Junkrat even more time to basically hound on these guys. And this is something we saw time and time again, Albion, didn't we? So if you want to just go into more detail on that front, that'd be great.
Yeah, and it's something that, unfortunately, it's kind of a side effect of being maybe a new team. Maybe these are a lot of rookies for Zoo, where it's pretty clear that they're not identifying their actual win conditions for the comps. It's not like running a Reinhardt-based, 3-3 composition is anything revolutionary. This is a composition that there's plenty of information out there on. There's plenty of VODs to watch. There's plenty you can study, and they just completely missed how they should be playing this against the Orisa. The easy thing to do is, instead of, like you mentioned, going underneath and letting the Junkrat sit for free on high ground and farm you and eventually build tire, you simply go to the high ground and you match the Orisa, and you simply cross that line that Orisa kind of draws in the sand with her shield, and suddenly you have all of the advantage. Orisa's shield is no longer a factor, and you still have a Reinhardt shield blocking all of that Junkrat spam. And unfortunately, it just doesn't look like Zoo quite knows where they need to be in the meta, and especially when it comes to some of the later maps, they're definitely not making the swaps that they should be. I know we mentioned it before, but there just are counters. Counters exist, and
Yeah.
I feel like they're turning on their brains and thinking about it.
Yeah, we were talking about turn on the light switch, and I mean they played on the defense. We'll go to a little more detail on this. We had Zoo. They played on the high ground. They played the Orisa, and you were talking about how they draw the line in the sand. But really, in this situation, Zoo's defense is about as good as a sandcastle. Really, it's crumbled almost immediately by the attack coming out from LGE. They jump on the high ground, and what just happened there?
Well, it looks like
Blank's been showing the love, spreading his mute bug onto me. It
I'm
happened.
sorry, dude.
I do definitely want to highlight the hero swaps between these 2 teams, though. Zoo are much more indecisive. They'll roll out with maybe 4 different compositions over the course of an attack as they try and figure out what's actually going to work. Can't quite figure out how to break through the defenses. Whereas for Lingan, they'll run with 1 attempt on their original comp, realize, hey, that doesn't work. So how do we counter what they're going to do? They'll swap onto maybe Winston Goats, or swap onto a Widow Brigitte, and then they just stomp. They have a much better grasp of the meta, and it's also the experience of playing through previous seasons of Contenders. They are used to these situations. They know how to effectively just go, okay, we need to be playing this, swap, execute. It's much cleaner. Zoo, still new, still have the indecision, maybe a little bit split up in some of the execution as well after they do actually make those swaps. And it's pretty obvious which of these teams is new, came through trials and open division in their first new Contenders, and which team, despite having a couple new pieces, they're the veterans. They've been here before. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, you can't really toss money at a team and expect it to work almost immediately. Like these guys, they're definitely towards the Contenders level, right? They're playing pretty decently, better than I play in my solo queue most of the time. You can tell you that right now.
Not
But
hard.
again, yeah, it's not hard. At the end of the day, it's not hard. I'm a turbo Intio Lucio, which is pretty tough for me. The Reddit Lucios, they don't like me in those games, but whatever. I try. But one thing that we can talk about the support side, just like Lucio, is how on Dorado you see that Lingan Esports, they can interchange the supports very, very easily. Like they can play so many different ones, and it really amplifies our option.
Yeah, most importantly, it's the fact that they can both play the Ana to a really high level. We saw Molly bring out Ana for most of the series, but when they move on to Dorado, they start bringing out Lengsa instead on the Ana, put Molly onto the Zen. And Ana is a very high skill floor hero sometimes. You need to have good aim, good cooldown usage to be able to actually find value of the hero. The fact that both of these support players can play it to such a high level gives them so much flexibility in what they want on the support line. Do they want to run the Brig Ana maybe? Do they want to run Lucio Ana, Lucio Zen? They can swap back and forth, and it lets them just fine-tune their compositions to match the scenario. It's just, again, it's having the flexibility for Lingan Esports, but knowing exactly what to run, how to quickly swap onto it, and then execute your new composition that we just weren't seeing from Zoo.
And execution has always been a big thing. Albion, want to say something?
I was going to say, kind of on the flip side, unfortunately, for the side of Zoo, they weren't showing that same flexibility when it came to maybe their DPS and their ability to play certain heroes at the same level. And what we saw in Dorado, Cloudy trying to take that Widow matchup, and he wasn't really getting a lot of value on their offense. He was never really winning the duels, and overall, Zoo was never able to actually deal with the defensive Widow. But then on their defense, they were allowing Cloudy to get pressured by the Genji, and inevitably the fight that actually cost them, the map. He was soloed out basically by the Genji from Lingan, and it shows a lot that maybe once you take them off some of their like extreme comfort picks, maybe they're not quite where they want to be.
No, not at all. And we actually saw in game that once Cloudy does get pressured on, instead of moving towards his teams, he actually moves back out and draws the Genji away. And that says maybe a lot towards that he doesn't want to go towards his team because maybe he puts more pressure on them by bringing Cammy back. And that's a pretty tough thing to come to terms with. But I think so far what we have seen is LGE, they effectively invest their resources. They know what they want to do. Execution is key. And I think that's something you're going to see throughout the rest of this season as we come on through. Anyway, we are going to wrap up here. Our next matchup will be Flag Gaming versus Lucky Future. This should be an interesting matchup because both these teams ended around 2-3 last season in the group stages. So it could be a bit more scrappy than we've seen so far rather than these stomps that we have seen. So it might be a little bit on par. So definitely stick around for that one because that should be a great game to watch. Anyway, thank you from me, Albion, and Fowls. We shall catch you very shortly.
The first match of Contenders China Season 3 was two-time second-place finishers LGD Gaming versus Restart, who had acquired Future Group's spot after FTG fought their way through trials. For the most part, it was the tanks that were put to the ultimate test this match, with Tang Chio's Winston going up against Feng Yang Zarya. Though the latter had some spectacular, impressive moments, it was ultimately Tang Chio's Winston that stole the show, leading the way for LGD's quick win on Ilios, Horizon, and Route 66. For Numbani, it was the Rika Eternal on the Doomfist Sombra combo that stole the show for LGD. With no answers for the overwhelming tank line or the dominant Doombra, LGD would go on to win the first Contenders China Season 3 match in a quick 4-0.
As they get a nice wall to unfortunately help the team of LGD as they are going to claim victory.
The second match of the night featured the roster formerly known as Moss 7 Club, Big Time Regal Gaming, and Alter Ego, who received their contender spot from Season 2 Contenders team hero Taciturn Panther. BTRG's Contenders experience was apparent from the get-go, with the team taking a very quick win on Ilios and Route 66. When they showed some shakiness, specifically on Numbani, where a lack of coordination on point A allowed Alter Ego to backcap and ultimately resulted in a tie, the tank play once again determined the winner. AE's Sombra Doomfist did manage to stall the enemy for a while on Numbani, though it wasn't enough to turn the tide of battle. Special honors, however, do go to King Kong on AE, whose tank play almost gave his team their first map win.
effort though, still high charge here. King Kong coming in, had a couple that he got with his. Oh, and he finds a Lucio as well on the charge.
And finally, the only Academy team of the region, Team CC, took on 666 Legend, a team they previously faced last Contenders. TSL showed the first Widowmaker of the season, unusual due to China's preference for the sniper in Season 2. Team CC, meanwhile, showed their flexibility in compositions, going from quad support to goats and everything in between. Though TSL showed similar strengths, CC was able to go back to basics soon afterwards to stabilize and push forward. Though it was the closest match of the first day, Team CC managed to close out the series with a perfect 4-0 sweep against TSL.
Ultimates wanting to try and prevent that Coalescence from doing any more assistance for 666 Legend as they are dominating in these last few seconds. 30 seconds to go, reaching that golden square of victory.